How did your entitled boss screw you over? I work for a medical equipment company, specifically in the contracting department. We handle paperwork for million-dollar instruments globally, and I handle half of the United States in my territory. It can be challenging, and if a customer fails to sign an agreement, it can cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars a day if something breaks. And if they fail to sign because of me, then that can come back to bite my company in the butt, because we might have to pay for the repair ourselves, so I'm fastidious about my work. A few days ago I got an email from one of my account managers, we'll call him Hank. Subject line wasn't directly hostile, but it was marked important and listed a bigger account. Hank emailed me wanting to know why a contract hadn't gotten to the customer, basically asking, hey, this is way past due, and it's your fault, care to explain yourself? He CC'd his boss and my supervisor so they could all see my big mistake. I dug and looked, and he was right, the customer's contract expired 8 months ago. A little more digging and I found out he emailed me about this customer's equipment last September. So I reread the email chain, it was a conversation from half a year ago, after all. Luckily for me, I keep all my emails filed perfectly, account by account, and even color-coded in each folder based on info and subject. It's tedious, but it can definitely come in handy if I ever need to look back for any reason. Then I sent him a response, hey Hank, these are the 2 equipment pieces you asked about back on September 10th, correct? The ones that were outside my scope? In the last email I'd seen from you about that, you'd said you were putting together a contract for that equipment, because my team doesn't handle these types of contracts, which I confirmed for you in the attached email from September 22nd. If I've let something slip through the cracks here, don't hesitate to ask. Always happy to help. I then attached the email where I told him I wouldn't be handling this because it wasn't my job, and also attached the email where he acknowledged I was correct and said he would handle this himself. I kept both of our supervisors CC'd. After all, he'd been the one who added them. I basically told him, yeah, you did ask about that, and we determined it was in no way my job and definitely something you should handle, and you said you'd handled it 6 months ago, did you not handle it like you said you would? In front of our bosses. And now Hank's boss can start his day by reading about how Hank promised a customer a contract half a year ago and then never followed through. It was a tough day for Hank. Then I went face to face with Mary. Mary was an account manager a few years ago, ambitious, slimy, and willing to cheat. When she saw a woman near retirement making double what she made, she saw an opportunity. Sarah had a team of 3 under her, and she was old-fashioned and very particular. It would have been easy for Sarah to rub people the wrong way. Sadly, she was an easy target. Mary got some friends together and launched a character attack on Sarah, pointing out their slow, meager growth and saying she could do that whole team's job blindfolded if given the chance. The company listened. Sarah was pushed into early retirement and Mary was given Sarah's job. But they didn't give Mary a team. Since Mary said she could do the whole team's job herself, turns out the company took her at her word. Company saw they could fire 4, promote 1, and cut costs. Whoops. Now Mary can't promote the AM buddies she'd conspired with. Not yet anyway. So she buckles down and does her best to stay afloat. Mary flounders. After a rough year and a half, she's deep in drugs and booze, her numbers are terrible, and she's facing a firing squad because there's an employee in her department, a lower-rung contacting guy, who is outpacing her. That's right, if you haven't put it together. Mary was my current boss. Mary was doing the job of my 4 previous managers and definitely struggling to keep her head above water, having way too much to do as Sarah's team's replacement. My entire team knew she'd be promoting people into Sarah's team's old roles eventually, and we all hoped for a spot. Since I was regularly hitting 200% quota, I was a shoo-in for one of those spots. Or was I? Sadly, it turns out that Mary's position was actually worse than any of us knew. After underperforming for too long, she was secretly facing termination. And turns out? They were looking to hire me in her spot when they brought me up for training, right after my vacation. Mary was panicked, facing losing her job, and she knew I kept receipts so she couldn't make up a story and write me off like she'd done to get where she was now. Then, the Hank problem happened. I emailed her my receipts, and instead Mary found an ally. She saw an opportunity to work with Hank, an AM who also wanted me gone now for his own job security, and together they devised a plan. While I was out for a week visiting family down south, they collect several account manager complaints that no one ever saw, just stuff she knew about AMs that didn't want to keep working with me. Hank and Mary worked together while I was out of the office and couldn't defend myself, pressured my weak-willed boss, and made their move. She said my emails were unprofessional, citing an email where I asked I was wondering if you'd had the chance to review the contract I'd sent over a few weeks ago, as being pushy, unprofessional, and accusatory. My boss crumpled like a house of cards. No warning. No write-up. No training to improve. No days without pay. No demotion. For a trumped-up email charge and some vague promises of whispers in the wind, my boss caved and went from a slap on the wrist to launching the nuke. When I got back on Monday, they met me at the door and let me know they had decided to let me go. No discussion, it was all decided and finalized. I was hired by another company the same day, so I'm fine. Making the same money, so the worst thing I'll lose out on is that 200% bonus payout every few months, which does suck.